हरि ओम। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। Hari Om, friends. Welcome to the session 4 of this new series called Gita, Gift. Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. This is a study of selected verses from the Bhagavad Gita based on Shankara Bhashyam. In our last session, we saw Krishna started his teaching to Arjuna. Today, we will continue to follow him and take up shlokas from chapter 2, 16 to 20 for our study. Shri Karthik, Dr. Rekha, Srimati Nilima, Srimati Lakshmi, and Dr. Manjula Devi will be helping us to understand the teachings of Lord Krishna. Now it's time to listen to the introduction by Venkatesh Prasadji, who will moderate the session for today. Over to you, Venkateshji.
Thank you, Nita. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Hari Om. Shri Guru Namaha. It's a great privilege to be studying Bhagavad Gita for the 5th time in the last 3 years. In the previous series, Disha, we were discovering our inner strength and happiness, which we have certainly found. Now, we are studying Gita for inner freedom and transformation in our new series, which we have named Gift. Yes, discovery is Jnana and transformation is Jnana Nishtha. Shankar Bhagavad Pada terms it as Nityatma Darshinaha, one who is anchored in Brahman. Krishna has begun his teaching to Arjuna with verse 11. The whole of second chapter is a glimpse of entire Gita Shastra, which he will elaborate in the next 15 chapters. Again, at the end of 18th chapter, he summarizes. Let's now get into today's verses. Lord Krishna wants to solve Arjuna's problem of sorrow and confusion and wants him to fight this Dharma Yuddha. And therefore, he is arguing from various angles to make Arjuna fight this war. And his discussion is Anatma Viveka. And then his discussion is in 3 levels. The first is philosophical level, which we call Atma Anatma Viveka. And then Krishna comes down to ethical level of Dharma Adharma Viveka. And finally, Krishna comes to Laukika level, worldly angle. And Krishna points out that from any angle you see, you have to fight this war. Of these 3 levels, Krishna is now discussing the first and topmost. That is the philosophical angle from the 12th verse to 25th verse. Here, Krishna is talking about the nature of Atma, which is the real nature of everyone. In the 14th verse, Lord Krishna highlighted the value of titiksha, the capacity to maintain the mental balance when opposite experiences come to a person. Lord Krishna has said that one should accept and withstand opposite experiences because they are agama painaha. They are subject to arrival and not worth worrying over because sooner or later they are going to go away. Therefore, they being anityam, don't spend your time and mind too much over that. The phalam, such a person who observes titiksha gets is mentioned in the 15th verse. It says, such a person who treats sukha and dukkha as equal with neither excitement nor frustration, such a wise person who is always anchored in Atmanishta or Nityatma Darshina, as Shankara calls him, will never be shaken and will be fit to attain moksha or amritatvam. 16th verse is giving another reason for withstanding them. The reason already stated is they are anityam. Now the second reason that is going to be given in the 16th verse is that they are all mithya, unreal. Not only are they anityam, but they are asatyam also. And since they are asatyam or unreal, You should not get too much obsessed with them, whether it is bad experience or good experience. A very technical and important verse. In this verse alone, the main teaching of Upanishads, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, is brought out, and this is the most fundamental teaching of Shastra. Brahman is real and the world is unreal. And in this shloka, Brahman is known by the name Sat, based on the Chandogya Vakyam. Sadeva Saumye Damagra Asit Ekameva Dvitiyam. I request Mr. Karthik to explain this verse 2.16 to us.
Thank you, sir. Now, before we launch into the verse, there are two corollaries. As Sri Venkatesh said, Brahman in this shloka is known as Sataha, pure and permanent existence, and the Jagat is known as Asataha. So the corollaries for the Sata aspect is pure existence is not available for experience, but the existence associated with an object is available for experience. Number two, pure existence is a noun and the existence associated with an object is an adjective. Likewise, for asataha, there are two kinds of asat. One is a permanent non-existence, that is never there. That is in Vedanta it is called a tuchha rupa asat, that is like a rabbit's horn, which is never there. That is permanent non-existence. That is not what we are talking about here. We are talking about the second kind of asat, which is mithya rupa asat, that is, it is existent in some periods of time, that is impermanent existence. The world or anatma has an impermanent and borrowed existence, and it does not have an intrinsic existence. Now, the shloka is as displayed. The gist of that is there is no existence for the unreal. There is no non-existence for the real, and the truth of both of these is indeed known by the wise. So, going further, the one who knows that I am Atma and I am eternal will not grieve over Anatma, because Mithya Anatma cannot affect Satya Atma. Next slide, Doctor. Sir. Jagan Mithya. So, the first quarter of the shloka can be rearranged as Asataha Bhavaha Na Vidyate, meaning that which is Asat never has existence. Asataha here is Mithya Rupa Asat. Okay? So, that which is temporarily existent. To bring this out, Shankaracharya refers to the previous shloka as already said in the introduction. Matra sparshasta kunteya sitoshna sukha. That is, matra is sense organs and sparsha is sense objects. So Shankaracharya here relates the bodily sensations, that is the cold and the heat, and the emotions, that is pleasure and pain, and their causes, that is sensations, the emotions, and their causes to asataha. All of this is asataha. Why? Because all these are effects or changes or vikara, and whatever changes is temporary. And we know that cold, heat, pleasure, pain all have a beginning and an end, and so they are temporary. And whatever is temporary is unreal. So the entire Jagat, which only consists of this Karya Karana Sambandha, that is cause effect chain, does never have its own existence, but only a borrowed existence. And so Mithya, the world, is unreal. Next slide, sir. So we go to Brahma Satyam. Here again, the second quarter of this shloka, it is said to be the most important sentence of the entire philosophical literature. What does it say? It says Nabhavo vidyate sataha, which can be rearranged as sataha abhavaha na vidyate, meaning that for which meaning for that which is sat, there is never any non-existence or absence or destruction. Now we'll talk about sat in three ways. The first is we'll refer to the Antaravakya called Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma. Now, Satyam Gnanam Anantam Brahma are the minimum number of words required to completely reveal Atma. I'm borrowing a phrase from another aspect, which is called an irreducible complex. So we cannot reduce it further. Irreducible complexity. This is the definition of Brahman or Atma. And we sadhakas, we know that everything culminates in the appreciation of this definition alone. Now we'll go to the Avasthatraya. So we know this, we have three states: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Through all these three avasthas, there is one entity that does not cease to be during any of the three states. This is our everyday and relatable proof of the real, that Sat, not ceasing to exist at any point in time. Next slide, sir. Now, Shankaracharya in his Bhashya, he says that all the time we are experiencing the Satvastu and the Asatvastu. The Satvastu plus the Asatvastu is the world. We would have ignored or lost sight of the Sadvastu in and through the Prapancha. The one isness in Karya and Karana, which is inherent and permanent, and that which we ignore is Satyam. So just as we lose sight of the screen in the Mithya movie. Shankaracharya goes on to bring up a very beautiful example of a blue lotus, na nilot pavat. So in the blue lotus, one is variable and the other is non-variable. Here color is variable and the lotus is non-variable. Object and the object experience are variable, whereas the existence and the existence experience are non-variable. So the Karya-Karana Prapancha, that is the changing objects, are mithya, and the non-variable existence, which is experienced as an attribute of this object, the isness, is satyam. So two conclusions. One is, since the object experience is variable, the object is variable. This is felt outside. And the second conclusion, since the existence experience or the isness is invariable or non-variable, existence is non-variable. So Brahman or Atma or existence is ever present or never absent. Next slide, sir. So the next slide brings about the famous 5 principles of existence brought about by Swamiji. It is from this part of Shankara Bhashya alone. This we will read on our own later on sometime. We'll go to the next slide, sir. Now we are going to the second line. Ubhayorapi drishtontah stavayo tattvatarshibhi. This can be rearranged as antaha ubayoha api anayoha tu drishtaha tattvatarshibhi. This clear distinction between Sat and Asat is always present in the minds of those who attend only to the real nature of Brahman. Just a small recap. Asat is the world, mind, body, and all that we experience. And Sat is the Sakshi Chaitanya, which is aware of all these experiences and a continuous witness of all these experiences. Next slide, sir. So before we end the shloka, we'll just draw attention to this one word called Tattva Darshibhi. Here, as seen, Tat is that, and Tvam is not you. Tvam is a suffix, like Manushyatvam. In fact, here, Tattvam here is Brahmatvam. And here it's a pronoun which refers to all the nouns of creation. And the only thing that is common to all the nouns of creation is the isness or existence, which is Brahman alone. So in the Bhashya, Shankaracharya goes on to use a very technical word and a very important word called Shilam. Tad drishtam Shilam Yesham. And he takes pains to, he very carefully explains this phrase. Shilam means practice or abhyasa. The connotation is all the time and throughout their lives or in all situations. So when is anybody called a Tattvadarshi? So throughout their lives, in and through all the transactions, Tattvadarshis are aware that everything has two amshas. One is the object experience and one is the existence experience. The object experience is mithya and the existence experience is satya. Those who have this in their minds all the time, in and through all their transactions, are called Tattva Darshina. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Karthik, for an elaborated explanation. You brought the finer aspects of Sat and Asat here. Shankaracharya, in his introduction, says Krishna wants to talk more about that Sat Satyam Brahma in the 17th verse. Therefore, the 17th verse is additional information or knowledge about the Sat, which has been mentioned in the 16th verse. Therefore, he asks the question, Kim Punaha Tat Sat? Punaha means more. What more is the nature of that Sat, Yat Sarvada Eva Asti, which Brahman is always existent as revealed in the 16th verse with the words Sataha Abhavaha Na Vidyate. Karthik has explained this in detail. Now, Krishna wants to say more about Brahman. Kim Punaha? What more is its nature? Krishna is going to answer this in the next verse 2.17, which Dr. Rekha is going to help us understand him. Dr. Rekha, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. So after learning about Atma Nityam and Atma Satyam, we now move on to another quality of the Atma, Atma Sarvagatam. So the verse goes like this, Avinashi tu tad vidhi, ena sarvamidam tatam, vinasham avyayasyasya, na kaschit kartum arhati. Next slide, please. So in this verse, one part, as explained earlier, is a repetition that Atma is Nitya or eternal, but Krishna presents it differently here. And instead of saying Atma is eternal, he says Atma is indestructible. So taking the word tad, tad is that. And we use the word that when something is remote and it is not accessible to our sense organs. So that, Avinashi, it is indestructible. Nashi is to something that can be destroyed. Avinashi, indestructible. Vidhi. Krishna says, understand this clearly. Vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartum arhati can be rearranged to kaschit vinasham kartum na arhati. So Lord Krishna says, nobody can destroy. Now he uses the word asya, and he says, this Atma. And Swami Paramartha Nandaji says, even God, even an atom bomb cannot destroy this Atma. So the previous verse, which we just heard, and this part of Shloka 17, they remove Kala Paricheda, which is temporal limitation. Next slide, please. So as we heard earlier, the philosophical argument or Adhyatmika Drishti is one of the three methods that Krishna employs to teach Arjuna and convince him that he cannot run away and take sannyas. He must stay and fight the Mahabharata battle. He says Bhishma and Drona cannot be killed by Arjuna or anyone else because nobody can destroy the Atma. They are both Atma that cannot be destroyed by anybody. And the body will die anyway. So he tells Arjuna, there is no reason, Arjuna, for you to feel sad or to grieve because you cannot kill them. Next slide, please. Now, in the second part of the first line of the mantra, we find these words, Yena sarvam idam tatam, which means this whole creation is pervaded, tatam, by this Atma. So Krishna says that not only is the Atma eternal or indestructible, it is also all pervaded. So there is only one Atma that pervades everywhere. There are many bodies. They appear to be there in Maya, but the Atma is only one. And so we can compare Atma to Akasha, like space, which is everywhere. We have houses which form temporary borders, but they cannot contain space. Similarly, the pot cannot contain the space that is within it, which pervades out of it also. So Atma is formless and shapeless. So we learned that Atma is not only Nitya and Satya, it is Sarvagata. It's also called Sarva Vyapakam. And in fact, when we say Namaskara to each other, we just acknowledge the Atma which is within each person, because it just emanates all around. It is within us and without us. So this part of the shloka removes Desha Paricheda, which is the limitation of space, the spatial limitation. And Swamiji tells us that if we understand this, There is no difference between any of us, between a worm and a human being, between different human beings. And only harmony can follow once we understand this. Next slide, please. So these wonderful words, Yena Sarvam Idam Tatam, it appears 4 times in the Bhagavad Gita. And the first time is in this verse, in Mantra 17. And we will learn this as we continue our study of the Bhagavad Gita. Next slide, please. So I couldn't resist actually spelling it out again. I know Karthik said you can study it by yourself, but I think we'll just go over it once more because it can always be repeated. Consciousness is not a part, property, or product of the body. Consciousness is an independent entity that pervades and enlivens the body. Spatially, consciousness pervades beyond the limits of the body. Temporally, consciousness persists when the body falls, and the consciousness which extends beyond spatially and persists beyond temporally is not perceived when the body dies, not because it does not exist, but due to the lack of a manifesting medium. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Rekha, for a wonderful explanation. Now, we will enter the 18th verse, which is dealing with Asat Vastu. In the 16th verse, Krishna has introduced 2 principles. One is called Sat and the another is called Asat. Of these 2, the word Sat has been explained and commented upon in the 17th verse. It is the indestructible, all-pervading existence. In the 18th verse, Krishna is commenting upon the word Asat. The word Asat means the non-existent one. Swamiji explains that the word Asat can be used in 2 meanings. One is Tucham and another is Mithya. Asat is common to both. Tucham meaning that which is non-existence in all the 3 periods of time, like the rabbit's horn, etc. The second meaning of Asat is the Mithya Padartha. Any temporary object in the creation is also called Asat. Since body is also Mithya or Asat, we saw Krishna telling Arjuna, Agama Payanaha Anityaha Tan Titikshasva Bharata. Shankara Bhashya raises a question, Kim Punaha Tadasat? Yet Satma Sattam Vyabhicharati, which is that Asat, that which loses its existence after some time. We now have Srimati Nilima to tell us about the Asat which Krishna deals with in verse 18. Nilima, please.
Jai Gurudev. Let's move forward with the same thought flow. 18th verse. Antavanta ime deha Nityasyokta sharirinaha Anashino aprameyasya Tasmadyutvetsva bharata. Meaning, only the material body is perishable. The embodied soul within is indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharat. In this 18th verse, Krishna is describing Asat or Mithya nature of entire universe, including the body, which has got only temporary existence and which is perishable. Whereas Dehi, the embodied one, the Atma is imperishable. And while talking about Dehi, the Atma, Lord Krishna gives 3 descriptions. Nityasya, Anashinaha and Aprameyasya. 18th verse has got 3 parts. In the first part, we focus on the point that the bodies are perishable. In the second part, we see that easiness in the perishable bodies belong to Atma. Body does not have the independent existence. And the third part, we see that Atma is imperishable. Lord Krishna advises Arjuna. Therefore, he has to fight the war. Body is anyway perishable. Therefore, the death of the body should not worry him. Antavanta ime deha. So, those objects which are endowed with. Next slide, sir. Antavanta ime deha. Those objects which are endowed with end are called antavanta. Normally, when we say body has an end, what do we understand is at the time of death, the body perishes. But Krishna says, even when the body is alive, wise person understands that the body doesn't have easiness of its own. Therefore, the easiness is taken away from the body and hand over to Atman. It is an intellectual perception. This new perception is the destruction of the body, which is called Mithyatva Darshanam. Mithyatva Darshanam eva Dvaita Nasha. Because of a cognitive change brought about by knowledge, one understands the body and the world to be Mithya. And when one intellectually removes the existence from the body by knowing that the body has only borrowed existence and not its own, this process is called falsification. When the body is falsified, it is as good as non-existent. And this alone is technically called Badaha. Badaha is a form of distraction which is purely brought about by knowledge. Just as the dream is destroyed by the waking up, similarly, the body ends in the wake of knowledge. Yes. Next slide. Yeah. Atma is Nityasya, which means eternal, permanent. Anashinha means imperishable, which again means permanent, has got independent entity. Aprameya means not objectifiable, that which cannot be known as an object. Through any instrument of knowledge like Pratyaksham, Anumanam, Upamanam, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi. Therefore, Aprameya means Atma cannot be known through any instrument of knowledge, just like photographs can be seen, but the camera can never be seen. Subject is self-experienced, self-evident, without requiring any pramana. Therefore, self is not pramana siddham, but swata siddham. When pramada itself is self-evident, then what to talk of the sakshi? So too, when the chidabhasa or reflected consciousness itself is self-evident, what to talk of chit or original consciousness? When the reflected sun itself need not be lightened by a torch, then does the original sun require torchlight? Through Kaimutika Nyaya, it is evident. Atma Nitya Avikar. Atma is changelessly eternal, and here Lord Krishna is talking about Atma Swarupam to remove Shoka and Moha of Arjuna. Therefore, he advises him to extend it to Bhishma, Drona, and others also, that they all are the eternal Atmas. It is just a superficial shell, maybe removed by Arjuna. He is never killing Bhishma, Drona, and others. Bhishma is neither killed nor Arjuna is a killer. Lord advises Arjuna to do his duty in the war field. Tasmat yudhyasva, may you fight. Therefore, Arjuna need not worry about their death. Here, tasmat yudhyasva, it indicates these words that every individual must wholeheartedly, sincerely face the situations without any fear in every given field, at every given moment in one's life existence. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you, Nilima, for a very nice presentation. As Nilima said, the 18th verse, Lord Krishna said, Tasmat Yudhyasva Bharata. This appears as though Lord Krishna is commanding Arjuna to fight, and therefore this sentence looks like Karma Vidhi. But Shankaracharya clarifies this point in conclusion of his Bhashyam on verse 18. He says, Gita Shastra is not Dharma Shastra, but only for Shoka, Moha, Samsara, Nivrityartham, and certainly not Pravritti. Therefore, the significance of the commandment is only in removing the obstacle and not in doing any karma. To validate this, Krishna borrows a mantra from Kathopanishad. Hanta chen manyate hantum, hatas chen manyate hatam, ubhautau na vijanito, nayam hanti na hanyate. Hence, in the verse 19, Lord Krishna says, Atma is neither the subject of an action, nor is it an object of any action. In short, Atma is Akarta. Come on, friends, let's listen to Srimati Lakshmi Prakash, who will tell us more about this. Lakshmi, madam, please.
Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Ya enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhau tauna vijanito nayam hanti na hanyate. This is an important shloka. Here Atma's nature is described. Krishna says Atma is Akarta and Abhokta. Akarta means not the subject of any action. Abhokta means not the object of any action. Swami Paramatmanandaji gives the example of space. The space has accommodated all of us, and every action takes place in space. But space does not take part in any action. But without space, no action is possible. He gives one more example. Even in the case of sunlight, all the transactions takes place in sunlight, but light is not a participant. Like space and light, Atma's presence is required for all transactions, but Atma itself is not involved in any transaction. Coming to the verse, Ya Enam, this is in the Moolam. Enam means Atmanam, Dehinam, the self. While talking, we use the word I, the first person singular, which refers to self, in turn refers to Atma only. Veti is equal to Janati, the one who considers, which means look upon. Hantaram, Hanana Kriya Yaha Kartaram, concludes oneself to be a killer, which means the doer of the action of killing, a karta. Some people consider I as karta. In the second line, yahacha, some people manyate consider atma, enam, hatam to be killed. They look upon themselves to be killed. When their bodies are getting killed due to some factor, they say, I am being killed, which means as the object of killing action. Hanana kriya yaha karma bhutam. Here karma means the object. Karma bhutam means as the object of an action. People mistake Atma as karta and karma. People make these two mistakes. In the third line, tau ubhau na vijanito. Tau ubhau means both those people who look upon I as the subject of an action or I as the object of action. Na vijanitaha. They do not know the real meaning of the word I. The word I has got two meanings. One is called Vachartha. The primary meaning I is the body. The secondary meaning is the real meaning I, Lakshartha, that is Atma, the Akarta. These people do not know because of aviveka or confusion between Atma and Anatma. When the body is doing some action, the ignorant people say, I am doing the action. This means that they have equated I with the body. In the first line, Ya Veti Hantaram, they say Atma is the killer. In the second line, Yas Chainam Manyate Aham, Atma is killed. Both of them are wrong. In the fourth line, I am Na Hanti, that means Atma cannot kill anyone. Na Hanyate, Atma is not killed also. Atma is not a karakam of any action. When people equate I with the body, all the confusion occurs. Like space and light or a movie screen, Atma transcends all actions. Therefore, it is free from all karmas, sanchita, agami, prarabdha. Atma is akarta and abhokta because it is free from all modifications. Hari Om. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam, for a very nice explanation. Shankaracharya connects verse 19 and 20 as the cause and effect. The 20th shloka says Atma is changeless. 19th shloka is the conclusion. Therefore, Atma is akarta, not an agent. Or to put it in reverse language, Atma is not an agent because Atma is changeless. So he gives the introduction, Katham Atma Avikriya. How do you say Atma is changeless? He says Avikriyatvat. Why Atma is akarta, abhokta? Because it is free from all modifications. That is not said in the shloka, but it is the Shankaracharya's quiet addition. Why does he give such a meaning? So that he can smoothly enter into the next verse 20th one, which is straight away borrowed from Kathopanishad 1 to 18. To explain this beautiful verse, Najayate Mriyate Va Kadachit, I invite Dr. Manjula Devi. Over to you, Dr. Manjula.
Thank you, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. न जायते म्रियते वा कदाचि नायं भूत्वा भवितवा न भूयः अजो नित्यः शाश्वतोऽयं पुराणो न हन्यते हन्यमाने शरीरे. This is an important and highly philosophical verse. The essence of this verse is that Atma is nirvikara, free from modification or changes. Vikara means changes, nir means free from. So nirvikara is therefore means that it is free from changes. Living beings experience 6 types of modification, which is nicely described in Tattva Bodha. Next slide, sir. So the 6 modifications explained in Tattva Bodha is Asti, existence in seed form, Jayate, taking birth, Vardate, growing, Viparinimate, at metamorphosis or changing, Apikshayate, decaying or old age, Vinashyate, perishes. So this slide describes the life cycle of a human birth very clearly with the 6 modifications. Lord Krishna is talking about the nature of the self, Atma Sarupam, and how it is different from the body-mind complex or the Anatma. It's very difficult to describe Atma because it is attributeless, but he's imparting the knowledge of Atma using the seeming attributes which are explained by the previous speakers. The first point of Atma is it is Nitya. Nitya means eternal. In this shloka, very clearly he says, Na jayate na mriyate. Atma is not born, nor dies. Kadachit, at any time, because birth belongs to Sukshma Sharira and not Atma. Why we call it as eternal is because ayam na bhutva. It never comes to existence at a particular time. Na bhavita, never stops at a future time. Therefore, it is ajaha, birthless, or nityaha, deathless. Second point, it is satyaha. Atma is the reality. Why? Because it exists independently and everything else is dependent on Atma. Previous speaker emphasized that Jagat Mithya and Atma is Natya. And the Atma is Nitya. This is the only reality that we see. The third point explained by the previous speaker is the Sarvagataha. It is also pervading like space. Though there are many bodies, it is the Atma that pervades in all bodies and lives in the body. Fourth, Aprameya. Atma is never an object of experience. It is an experience of everything without self being experienced. Example, in a photo, you know there was a camera and you know there's a photographer which remains unseen in this photo. Similarly, you can experience everything except the self. Fifth description of Atma is Akarta. It is not a doer of any action and has no connection with karma at all. The sixth is Abhokta. Neither it reaps any results of action, the so-called Punyam Papam or Karma Palam. So therefore, it is beyond pleasure and pain. This shloka also describes that it is Shashvataha. You say Shashvata, na hanyate hanyamate sharire. Even body is tormented by diseases, the Atma does not go out of shape. So therefore, it is Janma Rahita, it is Apaksha Rahita, it is Vritti Rahita and Vinasha Rahita. It is free from birth, growth, change, decay, or death. So Atma is free from Parinama and hence is called Nirvikara. To summarize, though the body is destroyed, yet all pervading Atma never dies. Atma remains as a witness to modification of the body like birth, youth, death, and of also the mind in the form of pain and pleasure. The disturbance of the storm clouds does not affect the sun or the sky through which the clouds pass. Man shouldn't identify himself with perishable body and the ever-functioning mind, but should hold his identity with the self. Supreme joy and courage are realized by the wise who are one with the Atma. The fear of death is at once driven off by the knowledge that his immortal Atma. The importance is more described further verses. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Manjula Devi, for a beautiful presentation on your debut. Incidentally, Dr. Manjula is serving in St. John's Hospital, Bangalore. Thank you all speakers for a wonderful session. That brings us to the end of our session. Friends, as all of you are aware, Param Vedanta has been offering Guru Dakshina to all our Gurus twice a year, once during Guru Purnima and again during Gita Jayanti. You have been a part of this offering all through, and we are indeed grateful to you. Now, Gita Jayanti is back again on 22nd December 2023, and it's time for us to submit our offer to the lotus feet of our Gurus. I am sure you will join us in this Guru Seva as always, and I therefore appeal to kindly offer your generous reverential offerings to these Gurus. Needless to mention, that decision to donate and amount of donation is purely voluntary, and there is absolutely no compulsion. The entire amount of your offering thus collected will reach the lotus feet of our Gurus. The mode of payment to the account is displayed on the screen. It will also be sent to you in all the groups. Those of you who decide to offer may remit your dakshina to that account. Details of Guru Dakshina offered will be shared with you all. Hari Om. Let's log in for Kathopanishad session 5 on coming Friday, 8th December at 6:45 p.m. Until then, namaste to all of you. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.